Hi everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo, bringing you another video, vinyl in the mail, plus a store find that I bought blind that turned out to be a really good buy. So let's get started. I mentioned in a video, several videos back, that I was getting really frustrated about some records that I had ordered from a vendor in Great Britain. The company is Madfish. They have great stuff, and I've got no issues with the company because I ordered it back in July, and I traced the tracking, and it took, it kind of took a while to get from Great Britain to the US, but, that was understandable. And then I tracked it to the post office, my post office, where my mail comes from. August 10th, I think it was, it arrived there. And it sat there. I kept checking, every other day to see if it was being sent out for delivery. And after a week, I was like, what's going on? So then I started all kinds of phone calls to the post office, trying to find somebody. I logged in online, lost package complaint. I said, hey, it's there at this office. And then I finally talked to somebody at that distribution site. It doesn't have a retail site. It's just where the mail that gets delivered to, in my neighborhood, that's where it comes from. And I got an email back saying, okay, it's resolved. You'll be getting it in another couple of days. And it didn't show up. And so I kept calling. And yep, they kept tracing it. It's there at this center. And then they started mentioning that it was registered mail, because of the letters on the shipping code. And but they always kept telling me that, it'll be delivered. We'll get it delivered to you. And it still wasn't. So, all right, I ordered in late July. It arrives in Chicago at my post office August 10th. And finally, last week, we're talking in September, I got tired of calling people and getting the same story and not getting my records. I was starting to think that they're going to be warped because they're sitting in a warehouse that I don't know what kind of climate control is going on in there, so I'm really getting anxious about this. So I just walk down to the train station, get on the Brown line, take it to a stop that's right across the street from this post office distribution center. And I go in, and I had my tracking number written down on a piece of paper, and my address, so they would know where the package is supposed to be delivered. And I said, yeah, I've tracked my package, hasn't been delivered yet, and the tracking says it's at this location. Here's the information. And the woman there said, okay. She was gone less than 2 minutes. Less than 2 minutes. And she came back, and here's my package. And when I got it home, thankfully, they were not warped. In fact, everything was really super cool. And this is what I was waiting for. It's a 3-volume three-volume release of live recording of Fleetwood Mac from 1970. So it's this one here, Fleetwood Mac, Boston. I used to have this, I still have, I should say, on CD, in which it was called The Boston Tea Party. They're not original CDs. They were burned by a friend. But when I found out that this was also available on vinyl, that's when I started hunting for it. So here's volume 1. Then we have volume 2. And each of these volumes are 2 LPs each. One of them is 3-sided. The others are all 4-sided. And then here is volume 3. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the cover art, you know, all right, see if I can do this here. And then, of course, the other part. So put together, the albums look like that. Pretty cool. And this is a super, super great recording. We're talking about, let me double check the date here with volume 1. Take it out here. So February 5th, 6th, and 7th, 1970, recorded Boston, Massachusetts. It's got some nice information on the inside of the gatefold. The first part of the information is in general information about this particular tour and you know, the group's kind of, you know, what was going on with the group at that time. And then it has some paragraphs that are about the specific volume that you're listening to in the songs that are on that recording. Just amazing, amazing stuff here. Like on volume 1, it opens with Black Magic Woman and goes into Jumping at Shadows, Like It This Way, Only You, Rattlesnake Shake, I Can't Hold Out, Got to Move, and then the Green Manalishi, which, you know, I don't think the Green Manalishi was ever released on an official, you know, official vinyl release. It showed up, I think, on some, you know, a version of it, maybe on some, you know, live recordings, live boots, maybe. But other than that, it was a single. It was released as a single, but was not released on, at least on an album I haven't, that I can find. The lineup was the classic solid lineup. You get Peter Green. So it's like one of the last performances before he left the band. John McVie and Mick Fleetwood. And then also the other two guitar players, Jeremy Spencer and Danny Kerwin. I've talked about Danny Kerwin and Peter Green, you know, and Jeremy Spencer too, in previous video. It's really kind of an interesting story. I mean, Jeremy Spencer certainly is a gifted guitar player. He certainly had his style very much in the vein of Elmore James. Did a lot of Elmore James covers. He also had a little bit of a Bo Diddley style of playing. But, you know, and it's instantly recognizable when he's playing. Danny Kerwin was just a kid when he joined Fleetwood Mac. I think he was 18. He might have even been 17. And very, very skilled. And I believe he really looked up to Peter Green as an mentor, particularly in blues guitar playing. It was too bad what happened to Kerwin, because he really kind of fell apart, particularly after Peter Green left. Jeremy Spencer departed shortly after Peter Green, and then Jeremy Spencer, I think they put together maybe one, Danny Kerwin, I mean, put together maybe one or two more LPs with the band before he essentially was forced out, booted away. He had lots of problems, lots of personal problems and issues. It's kind of sad when you think of just how far he could have gone as a guitar player, because listening to these recordings, you begin to hear the interplay between Green and Kerwin. Green has this ability when playing to be dancing all around the scale or the key that, you know, the song is in, and does it in just a very beautiful and free and flowing way. Then you have Kerwin, who you can hear in his style that he is using usually one note in the key as an anchor, and he ventures away from that and then returns to that note, ventures in a slight other direction, but always coming back to that note, kind of stinging it in a way that B.B. King became known for the way he would like sting a note. So it's really interesting to hear that interplay. On volume 2, we have World in Harmony, then Oh Well, Stranger Blues, Rattlesnake Shake Again, Red Hot Mama, Teenage Darling, Keep a Knockin', Jenny Jenny. This is a great song, Jenny Jenny. And then an encore jam that included Eric Clapton. Like it says here in the liner notes, the set closes with a wild jam in which the Mac are joined by Joe Walsh, a couple of members of the James Gang, and a surprisingly low-key Eric Clapton. I thought that was interesting the way that was worded, because Peter Green took it pretty hard when the music media and people started calling Eric Clapton God, because Peter Green believed that he was truer to the blues form than Eric Clapton was. Eric Clapton was flashy. I mean, Eric Clapton, there's no doubt, is a great and very skilled guitarist. And for a long time, I really liked his early years better when he had all that flash going on. Some amazing guitar solos, like when he was with Cream. And then in his later years, I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of boring, But he actually, in those later years that I thought were kind of boring, started playing blues, in my opinion, much better. He was getting a better emotion in his playing and sound out of his guitar, much in the vein of Peter Green, because that's what Peter Green felt he did at a superior level compared to Eric Clapton, that he didn't have to dazzle you necessarily with his guitar playing skill. He got you with the emotion that he could bring out, in his playing. So yeah, that I can see maybe why they said, that a surprisingly low key Eric Clapton. Another interesting liner note here from volume 1. So it's interesting what they say here in the liner notes. We've got, as they're describing the band, the group had originally generated a reputation as the leading white boy blues band, with their appeal based around the contrasting characters and styles of their two guitarists. We began with just the two of them. The hugely talented Peter Green and the Elmore James disciple Jeremy Spencer, the latter also contributing a lively rock and roll persona to the band's increasingly popular live shows. And then later they added Danny Kerwin as a third guitarist. I just found that interesting. The hugely talented Peter Green and the Elmore James disciple Jeremy Spencer. I don't know, were they dissing Spencer with that? Just, found that kind of interesting. And then in volume 3, we've got Jumping at Shadows again, another version or rendition of Sandy Mary. Then If You Let Me Love You, Loving Kind, Coming Your Way, Madison Blues, Got to Move, The Sun is Shining, Oh Baby, Tiger, Great Balls of Fire, Tutti Frutti, and then On We Jam, another jam session ending the show. So finally, I got these. So happy. Another one that I got in the mail, they had a copy at my local record store, but it was damaged. The cover was damaged, and I wasn't going to be paying $33 for that. So I ordered it online from Amazon, got it the next day, and that is this one. Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets. This is live at the Roundhouse. So this was a show. There's 2 LPs here. It's got the nice label. Kind of looks like a kind of packaged like a box set. So, and then you can see how the that pulls out. And cool gatefold. Lots of notes. The font they use though is kind of weird and kind of difficult to read. But this was recorded Sunday, May 20, 2018. I almost went to see them when they played here in Chicago last year. I think it was that they played at the Chicago Theater. But I didn't go. I should have gone, even though I was going by myself. I was hoping to find someone to go with, but I couldn't find anybody else who was going to be interested or available because it was a weeknight. And so I probably should have gone by myself. It's all early Floyd. The songs that are on here are all pre-Dark Side of the Moon. So what they have is, starts off with Interstellar Overdrive, Astronomy Domini, Lucifer Sam, Fearless, Obscured by Clouds, When You're In, Remember a Day, Arnold Lane, Vegetable Man. I mean, some of these songs like Arnold Lane and then also See Emily Play, these are songs that were released as singles, but for a long time never made it onto a main LP release, and they're compositions by Syd Barrett. Vegetable Man, If, Adam Hart, Mother, If Reprise. And here's where that font just really, the something song, I really can't read it, and I'm not familiar with it. The file song. Anyway, green is the color. Let There Be More Light, Childhood's End, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. And then side D, See Emily Play, Bike, One of These Days, A Saucerful of Secrets, and Point Me at the Sky. So all early Floyd. Now, in terms of my reaction to this is going to be I think is kind of interesting. Initially, when I was listening to it, I had high expectations for Interstellar Overdrive. And it's a pretty short version, or it's a pretty short play on that song in the show. There's not a lot of what, if you're an early Floyd fan, you might remember all the early, not necessarily noodling, but just the way Barrett would just go off on like the wild adventure during, just freeform guitar soloing in that song. And I've read how both Mason and, all the other three, Mason and Wright and his name escapes me, the one, Roger Waters, would think that Barrett was ready to reel it in and come back to the main vamp of the song, and then they would end the song. But no, then he would go off again. So it was like they would have these 15, 20-minute long performances of Interstellar Overdrive. So I have all this in my head thinking, and I've heard some of these recordings. And so I was disappointed with Interstellar Overdrive because it wasn't like that. And then, I realized that my disappointment is not on their playing. I created my own disappointment through my expectation. I had the wrong expectation of, what I was going to hear. Because frankly, the rest of the album, the performances are they're amazing. They're great. Really, really, really nice. And I can imagine, the reason why they opened with Interstellar Overdrive and probably kept it short is because of that legacy that's attached with that song that, hey, we know everybody's going to want to hear it, so we're going to play it first and get it done and get it over with. Because it was the one song that these guys, we're talking about Gary Kemp, Guy Pratt, Lee Harris, and Dom Becken. That's probably the one song that they are the weakest on, and they still do a great job. But nonetheless, they probably recognize it as their weakness. So, hey, they open with it, get it out of the way, and carry on with the rest of the show. And it's a great show. It is a great, great album. Really do like it. Also, came in the mail, finally, they reissued John Prine's debut. I mean, oh my gosh. I got so tired of looking online and finding copies that were only in good condition, and the seller wanted $50 for it. And then ones in very good plus or near mint condition were like around $100 or more. I mean, just outrageous prices because there were no other pressings other than the original ones. So finally they reissued, and I think they're reissuing most of the early catalog. So finally got this. What a great singer-songwriter. So sad to see that he had passed this year from COVID. Then I made a blind buy, I guess because I had waited so long for the Fleetwood Mac Boston show. I wasn't sure yet, and I wasn't going to be sure until I got home if the albums were going to be in playable condition after sitting in a post office warehouse for more than a month. So I stopped at the local record shop to pick up something as a backup. And this is a blind buy. Knee High. It was they were a Chicago band, and they produced 2 albums. And this was a special release that on this, like, it's more like a blood orange color than real orange. Of this particular one, so this numbered 15 out of 150. They had another, there was this special release and then the regular release of this, which was also quite limited. And I thought, what the hell? I'll get it. And for a used record, it wasn't cheap. But the information that the store had put on about the band seemed, kind of interesting enough. And I couldn't find any information on Discogs about it other than saying, that, it was a Chicago-based band. So bought it blind. Love it. This is really amazing stuff. Kind of, they're not all over the place, but from song to song, you can hear styles that go from shoegaze to bubblegum to acid rock, psychedelic. It's just really interesting. And, you can hear, there's musical influences coming from a variety of directions. And I don't necessarily want to name other bands that I hear the influences from because I don't want to come off sounding like that's what they sound like. They're not derivative, but you can hear where these influences might have come from. And some of them contemporary influences, and some of them very, very early influences going back to the 60s. Good stuff. So, hey, and they only released 2 albums, so I'll be on the lookout for their second and final album, which I did finally find some information about them. Apparently, it's even better than this one. As good as this album was, their next release had all kinds of critical acclaim and praise to go with it. So that's what I've got in the mail recently. I want to thank and welcome my new subscribers. I got a few more in the last few days. Great. A lot of you seem to be joining the channel or subscribing to the channel and showing a lot of interest in my videos about the Frank Zappa releases, the series Frank Zappa, one album at a time. And hey, that's great, but hey, please check out some more of my videos and like those. I hope you like them as well. Please check them out. I have a lot more going on than just my in-depth looks at Frank Zappa, which I love doing, and I'm glad you're here for it. So thanks so much for your time. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Leave a comment. I like getting comments. Some people are starting to leave comments now. That's great. I enjoy that. But please remember to always enjoy your music.